Hello, all you fine folks, and welcome to another one of these weird reviews. Another Gman review today. Had to pop on and address something as I was surfing last night. I went into Gman's stream, and he was doing another quasi-scientific rebuttal and trying to read a scientific paper. And I noticed that he was really struggling with scientific notation. So I thought that was something we might address and give the guy a little help because I'm a giving person. If anybody wants to come in and chat about it, there's the link in the chat, and you can feel free to come in. It's a nice open forum. But let's get started here. We'll take a look at what Gman had to say last night on this particular topic. I think you'll find it interesting. Let's go right to it.
Again, the problem is bias. They need this stuff to be true in order to support evolutionary theory. All right. Human population statistics. Evolutionists argue, and by the way, I reckon I'm not an ape. I just want to put that out there, okay? Evolutionists argue that humans, the genus Homo, or just as a human beings, have been on Earth for roughly 2 or 3 million years. Using statistics, one can arrive at an estimate for how many people would be predicted to be on Earth at different points in history. For example, accounting for factors such as war, disease, and famine, assuming humans have been on the planet for only 1 million rather than 2 or 3 million years, we find that there should be, what is this? 102 million people on the planet today.
Now, I don't know if you guys can see that very well because it's tiny on my screen, but it says 10 to the 2,000 people. And Gman apparently hasn't seen scientific notation or is not familiar at all with exponents. I thought that was amusing. Let's continue on a little bit. There's a ton of scientific notation on numbers in here, so this is funny.
What the heck is that? Okay, there's 102 million people on the planet today. There are, however, not even this many people on the Earth. In fact, if 3 feet tall humans with narrow shoulders were squeezed into the universe like sardines, only 1082 people would fit into the entire universe. It would take 101. Oh, brother, I don't even know what kind of math they're using here with this, guys. I don't know if they're talking about 101,918 minus 1 other universes like ours to house that many humans.
So, bottom line here, every time he hits an exponent number, a number with an exponent, he's clueless. So, and if I recall right, that was like 5th or 6th grade math. We started talking about x squared and x cubed and basic algebra kind of stuff. Hi there, West 501. I thought this was freaking hilarious. And as you can see, it's a terrible argument anyway on human population, why the Earth must be young, because there would be, 10 to the 2,000 people on the planet today if you consider famine and war and stuff like that. If the Earth were 1 million years old, which nobody says that humans have been on the planet for 1 million years anyway, it's more like 200,000 best case. So I thought for G-Man's sake, we'll do a little lesson, some math here, see if maybe we can help him understand a little better what we're talking about when we see these weird numbers with another number above it. Now, G-Man, what is an exponent? This is useful math for everyone, including you. So what is an exponent? An exponent refers to the number of times a number is multiplied by itself. For example, 2 to the 3rd, written like what you saw last night, 2 with a little 3 above it, means 2 times 2 times 2. So the number you were struggling with at the beginning, the 10 to the 2,000, that would be 10 multiplied by itself 2,000 times. A ridiculously large number, right? 2 to the 3rd here is not, or 2 cubed, we would say, is not the same as 2 times 3 equals 6. It's also not the same as you just read the whole number. You get 10 to the 2,000, it's 1 million people. Poor Gary just has no ability when it comes to math, obviously. And then they talk about some special cases here. A number raised to the power of 1 is itself. So if you saw 10 to the 1, that's 10. Other special cases are like to the 0 and to the negative numbers, but we don't really need to talk about that. G-Man, we're trying to help you. We're trying to bring you into the modern society. When you see a single number with a little number above it and to the right, that's an exponent. It means this number times itself that many times. Sounded like you needed some help last night. Let's see, continue on here and see if he still continues to struggle with the exponents, because I just think it's funny at this point. But let's see.
It might be tempting to argue that the Earth could only sustain roughly 50 billion people, resource-wise, and therefore all humans above that number would die off. If that were the case, however, there should be evidence that the Earth resource capacity had been met many times in the past in the form of billions upon billions of hominid fossils. Hominid fossils, however, are acknowledged. See, I wouldn't use an argument like this, though. I would use a totally different argument, because they're claiming that we're getting much smarter when we're really getting dumber, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if that's the best argument in the world to use.
I'm really not sure where he jumped off to we're getting smarter instead of getting dumber. We were talking about population growth and how certain creationists say that if the Earth was really as old as we say it was, there would be, I don't know, quintillions, googleplexes of people on the planet, which I don't know where they come up with that either. The assertion was made in that particular creationist paper that if humans have been around for 1 million years, it'd be 10 to the 2,000 humans. And nobody's saying humans have been around for 1 million years. So we're starting from a false assumption, I think, there and proceeding on. But, that's kind of Gman's MO. He likes to find a false assumption and carry on from there. It gets better. As you see, Pillbox came in, who's now the XO, and they have a interesting scientific discussion about all this. Let's see.
How you doing, Xbox? I'm sorry, Xbox. Pillbox.
Close enough. What up, G-Man? Yeah, here we are again talking about the religion that they won't talk about. If you notice, the atheist community really can't talk about the evolutionary paradigm, because once they do and admit to what they actually believe, will hold their feet to the fire. As we noticed 2.5 weeks ago, and we were having a nice cordial discussion, the very links they provided admitted that they introduced animals that were already able to survive in the environment, thinking that was going to prove evolution. So they literally can't even define their own belief system. It's actually much worse than these citations that you're looking up, because it turns out now, like I was explaining, and I'm still trying to help many Christians that have been fooled by this, there's no such thing as adaptation, let alone evolution.
Ooh.
Exactly. So I want to know how they come to the conclusion that this Earth is billions and billions and billions of years old. That's what I want to know. I want to hear this science actually back up. I don't think they have any, because they can't use the dating methods now, because we got a scientist saying that the dating methods are not reliable.
Right. But how about this?
By the way, earlier in the same stream, I went back and watched some of the stuff earlier before I jumped into it last night. And he had that same interview with the guy from University of New Orleans talking about carbon-14 and how, and also Dr. Eric Hovind or Kent Hovind talking about carbon-14 and equilibrium in the atmosphere. But we're talking about here dating rocks, and carbon-14 has literally nothing to do with inanimate objects. So once again, G-Man's misunderstanding the topic.
Tobias, guess how I found that video? I did not find it on a regular YouTube search or regular Google search. I had to go to Bing to find it. I had to go on Bing, because I'm noticing on Google it's very hard to find stuff like that.
Yeah, they censor actually a lot of the topics that are extremely controversial. Anything that challenges the secular paradigm is going to be hidden. But what's really amazing, though, is that they don't even realize where any of their ideas originate from. You see, they can't use the word Darwinian evolution anymore, because that guy was assuming that the cell was just a couple of chemicals and a little bit of slime. They had no idea 200 years ago, 150 years ago, that the cell was actually an advanced hyper supercomputer alone. They had.
First of all, I don't think Darwin assumed the cell was a couple of chemicals and some slime. And second of all, I don't think it has anything to do with taxonomy and what Darwin was talking about. Let's continue. Watch Pillbox make an idiot out of himself.
No idea that just the cell absolutely annihilates any idea that it could have accidentally been formed. Of course, the entire genome, the entire DNA sequence, RNA, the entire genetic makeup of every living creature is literally more complicated than all the computers and technology man has ever designed combined. And you see, they didn't understand that 200 years ago, so they won't.
Whoa. 200 years ago? Does he think Darwin was in 1821? What he's thinking?
Quote anything that's even 20 years old. They won't quote Ernst Haeckel from 100 years ago, who said ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, which is, of course, one of the justifications of killing unborn babies, because they taught that they were just salamanders and lizards in the woman's belly and that you weren't really killing a baby. Yeah.
No, they teach that the fetus proceeds through stages, which does reveal our evolutionary history. And at one point in a fetal development, it does resemble a salamander, or basically a little worm, and that does come from our genotype and our ancestors. A lot of that information is still coded in our DNA, and it shows up in fetal development. It's just one of the ways we can show this happens.
Yeah. You remember back in the day, they used to make those arguments that women wasn't even holding babies, they were holding parasites.
Right. That's another one. Yeah.
Yeah, they call them zygotes, and they wouldn't even refer to them as being human. That's how.
Gman, if you're watching, and I know you will be, a zygote is a single cell it's a sexual cell from a man or a woman that has half the chromosome information, and they mate to become a full cell. So a zygote's like a half of a fetus. They don't call a fetus a zygote. They call a zygote what a zygote is. It's a sex cell.
Inhumane, but again, with everything that you just said, everything that I just got finished saying, how did they come to the conclusion how old this Earth is? They gotta have a method. They gotta have.
Well, here's what I want to tell you. Remember, here's the thing that everybody's got to know. They came up with the assumptive dates first, then 100 years later came up with dating methods that matched them. So
now, why would they pick a number like 4.5 billion years out of the ether and then decide to demonstrate that was correct? That's not how science works. That's never been how science works. And it's not the case in this particular case, because radiometric dating is actually a thing.
Why aren't these guys hailed as the most amazing prophet priests in the history of the world? James Hutton, Charles Lyell, and one other person. Who's the guy that wrote? I think it was Jules Verne.
Say that again, though, because you're right. They made the claims first with evolution, and then they came up with the dating methods. Dating methods are supposed to come first, then the claim how old the Earth is.
Right. They make the.
Yeah, you're probably right, Marcy and Mr. Unite for the children. I probably misstated that, but you're not going to call a fetus a zygote. That's silly once it splits. A zygote is a single cell. I do know that. And a gamete, I think, is what I was referring to. A gamete would be the sperm cell or the egg cell. The zygote is the mated cell. But anyway, continue on.
Right. They made the assumed religious assumption of old Earth ages of the different layers of strata and the rock, and then decades later came up with supposed dating methods that then proved them right. If that was true, these men would be held as the greatest prophets in the history of science, right? If they were able to make these magical predictions that this is 65 million years old, this is 400 million years old, and then they invent radiometric dating systems 50 to 100 years later, and they match. Please give me a break. That is so pathetic that they'd even fall for that.
You know what the great thing is? Now that a lot of them are afraid to have this discussion with us regarding about evolution, whether or not it's true, it opens the door for us to actually present what the Bible actually says about itself to people unchallenged. You know what I mean? Because now we don't have them coming to us telling us that we're wrong, we don't understand science, we're retarded and all that stuff. Now we can talk to our respective audiences without any interruption and show them why the evolutionist is wrong, and we'll actually grow in people who oppose it rather than people who are going the way.
So I don't recall anyone saying anyone in G-Man's community there is retarded. I do think they're scientifically illiterate. And when you make claims like, they just decided on what the age would be and invented the science to confirm, it just makes you look silly. There's no reason for that. It's not the case. We can show scientifically radium and various isotopes that decay at a certain rate and how much is left and how old the rock is. So you're tilting at windmills here, Gary, and it's very obvious.
They don't even understand what they're doing by ignoring this. They're actually doing us a service by doing it.
Right, but also remember this, that they've also changed their mind. Remember, the only thing that evolves are the opinions and theories of evolution, and they're atheists that preach them. That's why every so many years they're going to change their mind. That's why I have a 2009 Fukuyama book, and they'll say, oh, that's 10 years old. That's not good enough. Okay, so you're admitting they're lying to people, and it's just a psychosis. But here's the real catch here, is that a fiction writer was the guy that wrote The History of the Natural World. His name was H.G. Wells, and he was using these dating methods given to him by other pseudo-fictitious psychopathic priests like Charles Lyell and James Hutton that wrote these magical, mystical, fantastic fairy tales. And again, remember, that was to destroy the credibility of the Bible. So these were all fiction writers. They admitted they were just writing fiction so they could free the people of the laws of Moses.
Exactly. So if you're an evolutionist and you disagree with what you're listening to, and you would like to come on here and you would like to actually show us how you know how old the earth is, that'd be great. All I know is this: you forfeit the right to call somebody stupid, and you forfeit the right to challenge somebody's intellect if you yourself can't even come in the room and be able to show how something that we're saying is actually wrong, and use science to actually do it. You know what I mean? Don't ask me to use my imagination. Don't ask me to think like this and to think like that. I need you to actually show me a scientific, something scientific, use the scientific method, use whatever you got to use to be able to demonstrate that the earth is old and that it is not young. All right. So if they're not going to come here and challenge us, then I'm going to lay out my ideas, and they can be free to come here and challenge it. Are you aware of the cosmological argument, Pillbox? I'm pretty sure you are, right?
Well, I mean, if there's a cosmological argument, obviously I already have a problem with any sort of cosmological ideology.
That's a great point, Carnivorous. They do have most of us blocked, so we can't engage in the side chat. All we could possibly do is go in the StreamYards, and a lot of us are blocked there as well, but go in the StreamYards and present a scientific argument that immediately gets rejected, and we see this all the time, unless you're a hot young female with some boobs, and then Gman will at least act like he pays attention.
Right off the bat.
Well, let me let you hear it before you say anything. This is an argument made by William Lane Craig. Basically, what he's saying is that it's basically where did the universe come from?
I fight the Christians too because I'm fair. Go ahead.
You can fight the Christians all you want, but listen, I'm talking about like where did space, matter, and time come from? Right? The Christian is arguing space, time, and matter, and that's Bible. Because God is outside of time and space, right?
I'm not even sure what outside of time and space means. Maybe somebody can help me with that in my chat, but I don't know what that means.
Right? That's what he says. He exists in this fullness of his glory, right? God is spaceless, he's timeless, and he's immaterial. Therefore, he can create space, he can create matter, and he can create material, right?
Okay, let's extend that analogy. Let's assume for a moment there are other dimensions that we are unable to access and we're outside of. Let's call it the eighth dimension. So since I'm outside of the eighth dimension, I'm able to create a universe within that eighth dimension. That doesn't seem like a very plausible argument to me, but we'll continue.
Right? So
that is correct.
Yeah, the argument is that God is outside time and space and he created everything, right? The materialist doesn't like that because he can't be put into a laboratory with a little knife, and they can go there and dissect him and study him and whatnot. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but science is not everything. You know what I mean? Now, if you think I'm wrong about this, then fine. I'm gonna let William Lane Craig present the argument because he does a better job at it than me. I think a lot of people do it better than me. But if you have a disagreement with this, feel free to come in here and challenge me. Unlike the atheists, we are not afraid to defend our faith.
No, wait.
I think you're a little afraid because anytime someone challenges you, you mute them and put them in the background. So not buying that one, G-Man.
But before you put that on, though, I got to make one more statement. Remember, though, in the last 5 years, they've also changed their mind, and the atheists now claim that science doesn't prove things. It just gives them a high probability. So they actually don't even use science anymore, and they admit it. That's how crazy it's gotten.
I'm glad they're saying that because now nobody's gonna listen to them no more.
It's just a group. It's just an insane group of Kool-Aid drinkers. They don't even know what they're saying.
Ooh. Yeah, this is a live open panel, so if somebody wants to come in and throw their 2 cents in there, I welcome you. The chat, the link is in the live chat.
I was on Deeper. No, it wasn't Deeper Dinosaurs. It was on whose channel was that? I was on.
He still says Daper Dinosaurs. Can't learn, I guess.
On Jungle Jargon's YouTube channel, and David honestly tried to tell me that science doesn't prove anything. Like, what? I can use science right now that the prove that water will put out a fire and talk about why that's the case. You know what I mean? You're gonna tell me I can't prove that? Are you serious? I get on camera right now and prove this over and over and over again. You know what I mean? It doesn't know it's there to disprove.
Wait a minute. Look at this. Somebody just slandered me and said that I'm lying. See, what I'm doing is I'm talking about their own reality. This isn't a theory. This is historical knowledge that these people had these ideas way before Darwin, before Charles Lyell, before H.G. Wells, before Richard Dawkins, before Stephen Hawkins. These are all pseudoscientists promoting a fairy tale. That's not a theory. That's a fact. You're the one who believes in a magical and fantasist, crazy cartoon theory that you learned about on television, and they showed you monkeys with feet, and that convinced you that you came from monkeys because they took a hip bone of a chimp and then sawed it in half to make it fit and make it walk upright, and you fell for that. That's actually not just a theory. That's a crazy, insane religion is what that is. Thanks.
Exactly. So let me play the video here and if I can hear from me like what the argument is.
Oh, goody.
And then again, I would like to thank all of the evolutionists for not wasting my time and coming in here and lying to me now that you actually agree with us that your evolutionary theory is wrong.
The origin of the universe. Have you ever asked yourself where the universe came from? Was there a beginning to the universe? Or does it just go back and back forever? Typically, naturalists have said that the universe is just eternal and uncaused, and that's all.
No, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with Dr. Craig. They don't universally say that. Some say that. Some have the steady state theory still, but a lot of us think, or a lot of non-creationists would assert that there's a multiverse and we're some sort of bubble in that multiverse. So already a lie.
But there are good reasons, both philosophical and scientific, to doubt that this is the case.
Philosophical and scientific. Meaning we're not just saying science, the end. We're taking the fullness of our education and we're coming to a conclusion. We're using the word of God, we're using philosophy, we're using science, we're using history, we're using everything. Whereas the atheist is, the evolutionist is just showing up and they're just saying science, and then that's it. So of course you're going to get destroyed because you're not taking the fullness of your education into account.
Philosophically, the idea of an infinite past is very problematic. Think about it. If the universe never had a beginning, that means that the number of past events in the history of the universe is infinite. But the existence of an actually infinite number of things leads to metaphysical absurdities. To give one example, what is infinity minus infinity? Well, mathematically, you get self-contradictory answers. For example, if you had an infinite number of coins, numbered 1, 2, 3, and so on, to infinity, and I took away all the odd-numbered coins, how many coins would you have left?
You'd still have an infinite number of coins.
Well, you'd still have all the even-numbered coins, right? Or an infinity of coins. So infinity minus infinity is infinity.
Correct.
But now suppose instead that I took away all of the coins numbered greater than 3. Now how many coins would you have left? Well, just 3. So infinity minus infinity is 3. And yet in each case, I took away an identical number of coins from an identical number of coins and came up with contradictory results.
See, he's doing a slick one here. He's doing a three-show Monty on you. He's equating infinity with a number of something. Infinity is not a number of something. It's a concept.
In fact, you can get any answer when you subtract infinity, from 0 to infinity.
This is why he first admitted that you get a contradictory bunch of answers, is because infinity minus infinity makes no sense. That's like tree minus monkey. It's not a concept. Oh dear. I have to find about where I was. I clicked and
I'm skeptical.
Now, how many coins would you have left?
About there. Sorry.
Number of past
Aberrant
events
click.
must be finite. Therefore, the series of past events can't go back and back forever. Rather, the universe must have begun to exist.
I don't think he demonstrated that at all. And he's failing to address the problem of his infinite God, which they always do.
This purely philosophical conclusion has been confirmed by remarkable discoveries in astronomy and astrophysics. In one of the most startling developments of modern science, we now have pretty strong evidence that the universe is not eternal in the past, but had an absolute beginning a finite time ago. For all matter and energy, even physical space and time themselves, came into being at a point in the finite past. As the physicist P.C.W. Davies says, the coming into being of the universe, as discussed in modern science, is not just a matter of imposing some sort of organization upon a previous incoherent state, but literally the coming into being of all physical things from nothing. Now, of course, alternative theories have been proposed over the years to try to avoid this absolute beginning. But none of these theories has commended itself to the majority of the scientific community. In fact, in the year 2003, three cosmologists, Arvin Bord, Alan Guth, and Alexander Vilenkin, were able to prove that any universe, which is on average in a state of cosmic expansion throughout its history, cannot be eternal in the past, but must have a past space-time boundary. This theorem applies not only to the standard model, but also to semi-classical quantum gravity models, inflationary models of the universe, and higher dimensional brane cosmologies. Vilenkin pulls no punches. He writes, "It is said that an argument is what convinces reasonable men, and a proof is what it takes to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place," he says, "cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning."
So I guess these three scientists proved that the steady state theory is bunk. I don't think they did, because some people still subscribe to it.
End quote. That problem was nicely captured by Anthony Kenny at Oxford University when he wrote, "A proponent of the Big Bang Theory, at least if he is an atheist, must believe that the universe came from nothing and by nothing."
No, we don't have to assert that. We can always say we don't know what happened before the Planck time, which is what most honest scientists will tell you.
But surely that doesn't make sense. For such a conclusion is, in the words of the philosopher of science, Bernhard Königscheider, in head-on collision with the most successful ontological commitment in the history of science.
This is what we call debating a straw man, and Dr. Craig's really good at it. He does it all the time.
Namely, the metaphysical principle that out of nothing, nothing comes. So, why does the universe exist instead of just nothing? Where did it come from? There must have been a cause which brought the universe into being. We can summarize the argument thus far as follows. Premise one, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Two, the universe began to exist.
Not demonstrated.
Three, therefore, the universe has a cause.
Now, while I have some objections with this argument, it doesn't get you to God. It certainly doesn't get you to any particular God. So I don't know why Dr. Craig's so big of a fan of it. At best, you've demonstrated that the universe had a cause. We don't know anything about that cause.
Given the truth of the two premises, the conclusion necessarily follows. Now, what sort of cause...
Philbox, you there, Philbox?
Yep, go ahead.
How many times have we been in a room with these evolutionists or these atheists, and they made the argument and they have said that the universe doesn't necessarily need a cause? How many times have we
I mean, they every time you talk to them about any sort of cause, they contradict themselves because all causes require some sort of form that defies evolution. You see, that's the thing. Evolution
How did we get to evolution again?
is a causeless religion of accidents without a cause, without a maker, without a designer. So everything they believe in is literally just going to turn into word salad. They don't even have a claim. Like I said, you can't even find an atheist to properly define evolution, period.
Right. So,
Pillbox, if you watch this, I'll be happy to help you with the definition of evolution. The change in allele frequency over time. That's it.
let me continue the video.
Cause is this? Well, from the very nature of the case, this cause must be an uncaused, changeless, timeless, and immaterial being, which creates.
See, I don't really see how you get that from Kalam, that the cause has to be changeless. Why? Cause has to be timeless. Maybe from the perspective of our local time and our observable universe. Maybe it's outside that time. I can buy that for a moment, but I don't see why it has to be changeless or eternal, because you just went through all that trouble to prove nothing can be eternal. Remember infinity minus infinity? Guess you forgot about that one.
Created the universe.
That's a God.
It must be uncaused because we've seen there cannot be an infinite regress of causes.
And before he goes on, I want to say this. At this point in his line of argumentation, the atheist can't say that nothing is eternal and nothing can always exist, because at this particular point, the atheist, the evolutionist, is going to argue that the universe is a constant. You know what I mean? If they can believe that the universe is a constant, then the concept of God can also be considered as a constant as well, too.
But see, that's not the issue. The issue is Dr. Craig said nothing can be eternal because infinity minus infinity, infinite cause or chain of causes, right? That has to apply to everything, or it doesn't apply to anything, right?
So
Right.
I love how he goes about putting his arguments together, because while he's making it, it destroys any foolishness that they may bring up behind it, you know?
Right. The term that they will always avoid, which is what they always end up in, and they always paint themselves into a corner, is called infinite regress. Go ahead.
That's right. Let's continue.
So we must come to an absolutely first, uncaused cause. It must be timeless and therefore changeless, at least without.
Oh, I'm sorry, and one more thing too. If Erica, Daper, Dinosaur, or anybody else out there has a problem with arguments that are being made for a young Earth, and you say that there's no mechanism or anything like that, I will gladly debate you using the cosmological argument versus whatever argument that you think you have to determine that the Earth is old. Have no problem with that whatsoever.
But the Kalam cosmological argument has nothing to do with the age of the Earth, G-Man. I'm not sure why in a debate about young Earth versus old Earth you would bring that up, because all it does is say the universe has a cause. Doesn't say anything about when it was.
However, because I know when we get out of science, it's philosophy. A lot of these new atheists that we're showing up are pretty weak in it. So you can deal with them. So
First, because it created time. Because it also created space, it must transcend space as well. And therefore be immaterial, not physical. Moreover, I would argue this.
That's such a weird concept. If I create something physical, does that mean I have to transcend the physical? Or can I be in the same physical realm of the thing that I create? I'm not sure why anything that created a universe would have to be outside that universe. Couldn't just create it around itself. Never made sense to me.
Cause must also plausibly be personal. For ask yourself, how else could a timeless cause give rise to a temporal effect with a beginning, like the universe? If the cause were just a mechanically operating set of necessary and sufficient conditions, then the cause could never exist without its effect. Once the sufficient conditions are given, then the effect must be given as well. For example,
pillbox. Isn't it weird listening to
Sorry about that. Did that fix the echo? Change my speaker configuration. Better?
uneducated person talk? I mean, William Lane Craig is so uneducated, right? Pillbox.
Well, actually, in the eyes of the secular system, he aligns quite well with, you know, some of the terms, obviously, that what the world uses. I don't agree with everything William Lane Craig says, but it's clear that he has a background in the educational system. He went to college, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he went to college. And I believe he teaches. He has a PhD in logic. So you know what I mean. As a matter
A PhD in logic. Nice.
of fact, he won't even debate Matt Dillahunty because he said he only debates people who have a PhD in I'm sorry, not in logic, in philosophy. And he will not debate anybody unless they have a PhD in philosophy. So most of his arguments most of the arguments that he makes for God or anything from the Bible are usually philosophical in nature. So I think he does a good job with appealing to the way they think and showing them the errors in how they see God and how they see, you know, the creation of the earth, and he does a good job at poking holes into the evolutionary theory. So I think he's great at it. But if Matt Dillahunty goes to school and get a PhD in philosophy, I'm sure William Lane Craig would debate him.
Suppose the cause of water's freezing is the temperatures being below 0 degrees centigrade. If the temperature were below 0 degrees from eternity past, then any water that was around would be frozen from eternity. It would be impossible for the water just to begin to freeze a finite time ago. So if the cause is permanently present, its effect must be permanently present as well.
That's one of the weirdest things I've ever heard anyone say. If it used to be cold in the past, it could never get warm. That's really bizarre.
The only way for the cause to be timeless and for its effect to begin a finite time ago is for the cause to be a personal agent endowed with freedom of the will, and who therefore has the ability to spontaneously create a new effect without any antecedent determining conditions. For example, a man who has been sitting from eternity could freely will to stand up, and thus we would have an effect with a beginning arise from an eternal cause. And thus we're brought not merely to a transcendent cause of the universe, but to its personal creator.
See, what I get out of all of that listening to William Lane Craig is the fact that the universe has to have a cause at the end of the day. The universe just can't be like, you know, the singularity got really high and we expanded, and then magically speaking, everything magically came together perfectly, you know, and then we got this universe and everything. It doesn't work that way, but that's what naturalists want people to believe.
No, that's what theists want people to believe. Magically happened.
And that's just, that, to me, that's just nonsense. You know what I mean? I think that William Lane Craig actually believes in the old earth, if I'm not mistaken, but
Probably.
I'm not taking his argument from the old earth thing. I'm taking his argument that the universe has a cause, and that cause was from God. You know what I mean? And if God did it, and if the Bible is reliable, then we can make a very quick argument showing how the Earth is actually young and not old. Again, their dating methods is flawed. They can't use radiometric dating. They can't use any of the dating methods that they use.
Why can't they use radiometric dating again? Just because you say so?
Because all of them are screwed up. And then we have the history of how these scientists are messing with the fossil record, how they're messing with like the Neanderthal man, like Lucy, like
They carved the bones, right?
I think he meant Nebraska man, which was discovered by other scientists, by the way.
Right. They took a saw and carved her hip bone so that she could stand upright, and they think that's science.
They tried to determine the age of a fossil by looking at a tooth that belonged to a pig.
That
Called it a human. Called it a.
Yeah, that was Nebraska man, and other scientists determined it was a fraud, and that doesn't make all of science frauds.
We called it an ape man. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like what you said. You know what I mean earlier when you said that their religious system has them believe how old the Earth is, and then they magically come up with these systems to be able to test it. The testing systems come first, and then they're supposed to be able to determine how old the Earth is. But they don't want to come in here and talk about that now, do they?
Well, they don't want to come in here and talk about you, G-Man, because they know you're not fair.
Right, but you have to realize, though, that they don't want to know the truth. Their entire point is to hide from reality, just like the person in chat right now that talked about his cartoon or his YouTube video, whatever he saw. He claims that there's a study showing that the Egyptian pyramids are 12,000 years old, which disproves young earth creation. Well, that's another cartoon just so story that a priest told him about, and that's what he's going to latch onto because he saw a priest making a religious claim with nothing to show for. Again, remember, this isn't science. We need independent variables, dependent variables, and something called an observed phenomena to be science, right? Science isn't a what is study. We don't use science to go, is this a cat or a dog or an eagle or a falcon or a chimp or an atheist scratching his ass? Science deals on things that are cause and
Hey,
effect,
Lubis.
which of course they hide from because their religion already demands that the system's working. That's why they never want to talk. Remember, they will never ever talk about abiogenesis because they will only dictate and want to have conversations about systems in nature that are already working, claiming that's evolution because it's here. And our claim is that no, it's the opposite. If it already had the ability to survive, it couldn't wait around for a while to have that ability. It had to have it from the beginning. That's what every single system in biology requires, that the system already functions. No evolution. Thanks.
Well, see, here's the thing. When you find an aberrant organism within a population of organisms that has a certain ability different from the other organisms in that family, they survive at a higher rate. That's what we call adaptation. It's not that the entire population had the ability. It comes about through selective selection, the selection process. Certain organisms are more suited for a certain environment. They survive at a higher rate and they have more offspring. It's really simple. It's not that the whole population always had this ability. It's a new ability that comes about through random change. Very simple.
Right. So let me read something here, Pillbox. It says, GTV, why are you, this is 5 times asking me this question. And I want you to watch how I respond to him. Because
Lubis is 5 times.
5 times is evolution.
Confirmed.
So I'm just going to, I don't know if he's being sarcastic with that or not. So let me just read it. He says, GTV network, why are you using science to prove God? God is outside the physical world. There shouldn't be any scientific evidence for God. 5 times, you got to remember 2 things. Number 1, God actually showed up in the earth in the form of Jesus Christ. So let's remember that first and foremost. Okay. And then number 2, that is a question that should be asked of Matt Dillahunty, because Matt Dillahunty is always asking us to provide scientific evidence for God's existence. He's setting you up for failure right from the word go.
Well, I think that comes from, and I can't recall who said this, but the fact that if God interacts with our reality, and somebody said if he reaches his hand into our universe, it should come back dripping with physics. There should be some sort of testable, observable reaction. So if you're claiming God doesn't interact with reality, sure, there's no scientific evidence, but that's not the claim you make.
When you call the atheist experience, and people are just now starting to wake up and starting to understand how foolish it is to call that show and play by Matt Dillahunty's rules. Anything that you want to say about that, Pillbox? Pillbox, anything you want to say about that?
I was responding to one of the one of the new Catholic Church atheists. Remember, a lot of these things come from the Catholic Church. The Big Bang was invented by George Lemaitre. But what was this other guy? Boy. 5 times. What was he saying? I saw him trolling earlier. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just read something here. What do you think about that? I'll read this again. Again, I said
okay, go ahead.
I don't know if 5 times is evolutionist or not. I don't know what it stands for.
Oh, no. Yeah, I saw this. Go. Yeah, let me hear your comment about it.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if he's being sarcastic, so take it easy on him. All right. So it says that GTV, why are you using science to prove God? Now I'm assuming he's being
we weren't.
And then he says God is outside the physical world.
Come on in, Lubis, if you want to.
Scientific evidence for God. I believe that number 1. Well, first of all, you got to remember Jesus Christ actually put on human flesh and throughout the months. That's number 1.
Correct.
I can talk about it in that sense. Number 2, this is a question that should be asked of Matt Dillahunty. Matt Dillahunty sets the Christian up for failure when they call into the show and try to provide scientific evidence for the existence of God, without first understanding that atheists already believe in their heads that you cannot scientifically prove something that's outside of time and space. They're setting you up for failure when you call into the show. That is a question that you should present to Matt Dillahunty for his dishonest atheist experience show.
Right. So let me help him out. So he's about half right.
Yeah, Lubis, I saw your comment, and I agree with you. Again, unless God is interacting with our universe, and then his hand should be dripping with physics, and we should be able to see that.
Right. Because science isn't he's exactly right. Science is going to be able to test the natural world only. Of course, God is outside of the world and the heavens and the earth that he created. So yes, there's no amount of science that's going to test God. See, God tests you. That's why you have a more moral understanding written on your heart, and you can either follow the rules. You see, there's no amount of evolutionary paradigm and religious magical thinking and wishful wanting that thinks that your morals could have evolved in the first place. The whole point here is that I don't need science. You're the one claiming science proves evolution. We're asking for the science for evolution. You don't have any. The scientific community admits they don't have any now. Now the scientific community admits science doesn't prove things. So now the atheists are literally just drowning in their own filth after 150 years of lies. They don't even have a leg to stand on. The point is, Gman, they don't even have a claim anymore. And I've been trying to tell people this for 5 years.
This is so tiresome. The idea that science revises its findings and says up front that we don't proclaim truth. We just show the best model for our understanding at the time. Therefore, all science is out the window. It's all guesswork. Nothing's proven. Nothing is sure. It's just tiresome. That's not what that means.
The atheist paradigm, whatever you want to call them, the evolutionist secular belief system doesn't have a claim anymore. They admit that it's based on presuppositional ideologies, religious beliefs, and inference. They admit this. Stephen Jay Gould admitted this. Hundreds of evolutionary so-called scientists, which they're not. Remember, there's no there's no cause and effect relationship, right? There's no observable phenomena.
One has to wonder if Pillbox is so questioning of evolution when he goes and gets a flu shot, or goes to the doctor for a cold, or any other sort of thing that we've created medicines for. Because I bet you then evolution's 100% good to him.
Ever sees something in reality and goes, oh, why did that happen? It must be evolution. There's no such thing. No, cats always make kittens, dogs make dogs, eagles make eagles, and you...
Again, a tiresome argument. Evolution doesn't argue that you can grow outside of your clade. Evolution clearly states that you can't evolve outside of your ancestry. If you're in a dog family, all of your offspring forever and eternally will be dogs. They may be different sorts of dogs, but they'll all still branch out from the same family of dogs. Nobody says a dog makes a cat. Nobody says a goat makes a cow. That's not evolution. In fact, that would contradict evolution. So stop saying that.
Can't get a pigeon from a hummingbird, let alone a human from a fish. That's the point. There's no observable phenomenon. There's never been any science in evolution. It's never been scientific. There's never been a cause and effect relationship. We already see everything in nature working.
Now, I will give Pillbox a little bit of credit. At least he doesn't say we say we evolved from rocks. That's G-Man level dumb. Because nobody says organic things come from non-organic things. Other than, there's abiogenesis, but that's a whole other subject.
That means the ecosystem, the symbiotic relationship, the bees, the birds, the trees, the bears, the flowers, the trees, everything already works, demanding that they already had to exist working, which destroys evolution. You don't even have a leg to stand on, guys. Sorry.
Exactly. And I think for us Christians, for those of us who don't understand these topics that well, or you do have an understanding of biology, and then you have questions presented to you by Erica, David Dinosaur, Dragma, and a lot of these guys on here who think they're like all that in a bag of buffaloes when it comes to science. Just listen to their questions. Like, for example, while Pillbox was talking, I was literally sitting here thinking about a question that Erica posed. Erica wanted to know what was the mechanism for intelligent design. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the question, and I'm thinking, I don't know if that's necessarily a fair question. What do you think about that, Pillbox?
It's a very fair question. It has a very simple answer. If you're a creationist, the mechanism for creationism is God. I'm sorry you can't see how easy that is, but that's your answer.
When somebody is asking for the mechanism for intelligent design, because they assume
that's insanity. That's actually crazy. Why would you're asking me to tell you how God does things? That would make that person think that they have that would make them actually claim that you're their God. So they're actually calling you God if they think that you can define the abilities of your God. So they are actually worshiping you at that point. And that's, of course, what the atheist is always going to do. They're going to land right on their face and they're going to start worshiping men. Remember, you're not the first man that they've worshiped. Right now, there's somebody talking about Aaron Ra, who is, of course, an infanticist psychopath who hides from reality to
Infanticist psychopath. Not sure where he got that. And it's Aaron Ra. G-Man, that's for you. It's Aaron Ra, not Aaron Ra. Please pronounce his name correctly. And it's Dapper Dino, you idiot.
Justify his, abortion lifestyle so that atheists can justify killing millions of unborn babies. That's the sad truth nobody wants to talk about. That's where this atheistic evolutionary religion has led us to. That's the real skeleton in the closet. The pink elephant and the purple dragon tickling each other in the room and everybody's ignoring it is the fact that the people that have been hiding from God for 5,000 years are the reason that all crimes in history have been happening, and it's all on part of the people hiding from God. The New Age evolution religion is the newest form of religion that helps people hide from God. So they're just repeating, rinsing and repeat. Guys, you don't have anything. You don't even have a claim. You can't.
I wonder if they realize what percentage of Christians and other theists believe in evolution. To assert that evolution is some sort of religion to hide from God is to discount all of the believers, the theists that believe in evolution, which is a very high percentage, by the way. So I don't know who he's arguing against here.
Even find somebody to define your own religion. And I know that hurts, but it's not my problem. Maybe get a hobby or something.
Now, with that being said, for those people out there that are evolutionists and you believe, in Darwin's theory, and you believe things that came out of that man's mouth, and you believe in these evolutionists, and you believe in that you're super smart and that creationists are super stupid. Please understand, before you can call anybody stupid, you have to be able to first articulate what it is that you believe first, articulate it. Meaning,
see, here's the problem, G-Man. It's not a question of one person's stupid and one person's intelligent. It's a question of you don't have evidence for your claims. You can't support what you're saying. It's just bald assertions. If you have something, some way to disprove evolution, that doesn't make creationism true either. So nobody's calling you stupid. We're just think you got a belief that you can't justify.
you have to be able to explain it to another person where they understand where you're coming from. No one's impressed by you using these big giant words that nobody uses every day. You got to be able to articulate it to another person so that they understand it. Number two, you got to be able to deal with the objections that's going to come your way regarding your belief. Then you have to be able to strongly be able to show your evidence that what you're saying is true.
And you do all those things, G-Man? Are you able to deal with the objections that come your way? Are you able to show your strong evidence, or you just say things are true? Think about that.
And I'm sorry, you're not able to do that with the theory of evolution. There are too many scientists that are disagreeing with you and your theory.
Yep.
It's time to let it go. It is a bedtime story for adults. Now, we see creation all the time. If you want to get a good example of it, just take a look at a woman having a baby. You know what I mean? Or take a look at an animal having a baby.
Things reproducing prove God now? That's interesting.
Or something along those lines. We see life giving birth to life all the time. We do not see non-life giving birth to non-life. We don't see non-life giving birth to life. We just don't see that.
Also, the maggots festering on the corpses of your ancestors that were also liars is also a form of creation. But let me point this out real quick. Somebody in the chat just talked about creationists explaining rapid speciation. Well, that's like asking me to explain magical fairy tale unicorns. I don't have to. It's not reality. Why would G-Man have to explain something that's not real? You see, that's your job. You're the one who has to explain the magical fantasies. There's no such thing as speciation. That's why.
Wow. There's no such thing as speciation. So everything's one species. I guess, okay, let me revise that. I guess he believes everything's created kinds and nothing has ever changed to something else within that kind. Whatever kind means.
After 2,000 years of breeding dogs, every single Canis lupus, from the wolf to the Chihuahua, is considered the same species.
No, they're clearly not. I don't think you know what that word means. You keep using it. I do not think it means what you think it means.
So guess who just died? The person that thinks there's speciation, because they're all the same species still. There hasn't been one single speciation event in 6,000 years of human history. Cows only make cows. And if a cow loses the ability to reproduce, guess what? It's still a cow. Now it's a cow with less features.
This person thinks cow is a species. Let that sink in.
doesn't help the creature. It now has a problem. It can't reproduce. If there's ring species, if there's a genetic bottleneck, if it causes creatures to lose an ability, that's not evolution or speciation. If I have children and my children cannot reproduce, are you saying my children are no longer human? Are they a new species? No, of course
What in the world is he talking about?
not. Nobody in their right mind would be stupid enough to make the claim. Only someone living in a cartoon fairy tale would do something like that. But even evolutionists won't. If you ask an evolution right now, ask any evolutionist in the world, if my children lose the ability to reproduce, are they a new species?
They'll tell you no, they're the same species they've always been.
They won't say yes, no, because they deny their own religion. So you can't even find a claim. Again, G-Man, watch how
But that's not what a species is.
easy this is. They don't even have a claim. It doesn't happen in reality. And if you give them an example of it happening to a human, and they'll deny their own belief system. There is no speciation event, or you think we would have read the article about it by now, and the guy would have, of course, received millions of dollars and won the Nobel Peace Prize for one speciation event. Cartoons on TV are not reality, atheists. I'm sorry, you've been deceived.
All right, so we're going to take a brief break. We're going to watch a small commercial here, and then we'll be right back.
And that seems like a good place to stop. I just wanted to make this a fairly quick response, an hour long or so. But wow, I mean, we started out trying to help G-Man out with a little bit of math fun because he had a hard time reading a scientific paper. So once again, for your benefit, G-Man, I'll go through this again. If you see a number and it's got another little number up and to the right of it, that's an exponent. It means 2 to the third, or 2, in this case, 2 cubed. And it means this number times itself this many times. So when you saw the 10 with the little 2,000 above it, 10 times itself 2,000 times, not a million people. Okay? Anyway, that was fun. A little helpful stream, a little helpful review for Mr. G-Man, who I know will watch this. And when you read a scientific paper in the future, now you know what scientific notation is all about. Thank you guys for coming. Have a good afternoon. I'll see you next time.